Have you ever had your entire day ruined by someone else's words? Maybe a coworker said something dismissive. Maybe someone cut you off in traffic. Maybe a person you trusted let you down. And for hours afterward, maybe even days. That moment lived in your head rent-free, replaying over and over, pulling your mood down with it. And here is what most people never stop to think about. That person has moved on. They are probably not thinking about you at all, but you are still carrying the weight of something they said or did. You are still angry. You are still bothered. And the question worth asking is, who is really in control here? Here is the truth that most people are not ready to hear. No one makes you angry. No one has the power to disturb your peace unless you give them that power. Anger is not something that happens to you. It is something you allow. It is a reaction you choose, usually, automatically, usually without realizing it, but a choice nonetheless. And here is why this matters. A man who is easily angered is easily controlled. Anyone who knows your triggers owns you. Anyone who can disturb your peace with a single word, a look, or an action has more power over you than you have over yourself. But a man who cannot be provoked, a man who has mastered his emotional responses, that man is free in a way that most people never experience. Today, we are going to explore exactly how to reach that level of emotional control. Not by suppressing your feelings, not by becoming cold or detached, but by understanding what anger actually is, where it comes from, and how to build the kind of internal discipline that makes you unshakable, regardless of what anyone says or does around you. If this kind of thinking speaks to you, subscribe to Stoic Mindset. This is built for people who are serious about mastering themselves from the inside out. Let's get into it. Before anything else, we need to understand what anger actually is, because most people have it completely backwards. Most people believe anger is caused by external events. Someone disrespects you and you get angry. Someone disappoints you and you get angry. Traffic is bad and you get angry. From the outside, this looks like a simple cause and effect. Something happens, anger follows. But that is not what is actually happening. What is actually happening is far more interesting and far more important. Between what happens and how you feel, there is a step that most people skip entirely. That step is interpretation. You do not react to events, you react to your interpretation of events. And your interpretation is entirely within your control. Epictetus said it clearly. We are disturbed not by events, but by our opinions about events. That one idea, if you truly absorb it, changes everything. Because if your opinion about an event is what creates the emotional response, and if your opinion is something you have the power to examine and change, then you are never truly at the mercy of what happens around you. You are at the mercy of how you choose to see it. Think about this for a moment. Two people can experience the exact same situation and walk away with completely different emotional responses. One person gets cut off in traffic and feels their blood pressure spike. They spend the next 10 minutes fuming, replaying it, imagining what they would like to say to that driver. Another person gets cut off in the same way and simply keeps driving. Same event. Completely different internal experience, not because one person is a saint and the other is not, but because one person has trained their interpretation and the other has not. This is the foundation of everything we are going to talk about today. Anger is not forced upon you from the outside. It is generated from within. And what is generated from within can be governed from within. That is where your real power lies. So if anger is internally generated, the next question becomes, why do so many people struggle to control it? Why does it feel so automatic, so immediate, so impossible to pause? The answer comes down to a few core patterns that most people have never examined. The first is ego. When we become angry, it is almost always because something has threatened the image we have of ourselves. Someone disrespects you, and you get angry. Not because disrespect is painful in a physical sense, but because it challenges the story you have built about who you are and how you deserve to be treated. Someone disagrees with your idea, and you get defensive. Not because the idea's worth has changed, but because your ego has attached itself to that idea, and a challenge to the idea feels like a challenge to you personally. Marcus Aurelius understood this deeply. He was the most powerful man in the Roman world, and yet he wrote privately about the importance of not allowing insults to land. He understood that the only reason an insult has power over you is because some part of you believes it might be true. Strip the ego out of the equation, and most of what angers people loses its ability to do so. The second pattern is expectations. We get angry when reality does not match what we expected. You expected the driver to be considerate. They were not. You expected the colleague to be fair. They were not. You expected the friend to show up. They did not. And in that gap between expectation and reality, anger grows. Seneca described anger as a brief madness, a temporary loss of reason. And he observed that it almost always begins in the moment when something we wanted does not happen, when we expect the world to cooperate with our preferences, and it does not. The Stoics were not cynical about this. They were practical. They understood that human beings will behave according to their nature, their pressures, their fears, and their limitations, not according to your expectations of them. And the more clearly you understand this, the less power their behavior has over you. The third pattern is the need for control. Most anger at its root is really frustration. The frustration of wanting something to be different and not being able to make it so. Someone says something wrong, and you cannot unsay it. A situation goes badly, and you cannot reverse it. That powerlessness, when not understood properly, turns into anger. Because anger at least feels like power. It feels like something, but it is not. It is energy spent on something you cannot change, which makes it the most expensive emotion there is, and the least useful one. Now let us look at how the Stoics approach this, because their framework is not just philosophical. It is deeply practical, and it works. The Stoic worldview begins with a fundamental distinction. There are things within your control and things outside your control. Within your control are your thoughts, your judgments, your choices, and your responses. Outside your control is virtually everything else. Other people's behavior, other people's words, traffic, weather, outcomes, circumstances. The Stoics called this the dichotomy of control, and they were firm about it. Spending energy on what is outside your control is waste. Full stop. Applied to anger, this becomes incredibly clarifying. When someone disrespects you, their behavior is outside your control. What is inside your control is how you interpret it and how you respond to it. When a situation goes wrong, the situation itself is outside your control. What is inside your control is what you tell yourself about it and what you choose to do next. The moment you genuinely internalize this, not just intellectually understand it, but feel it in the way you actually move through situations. The things that used to trigger you begin to lose their power, not because you have become indifferent to life, but because you have stopped fighting battles that were never yours to fight. The first principle is this: control your perception before it controls you. Picture this. A colleague at work sends you an email that feels dismissive. Short, borderline rude, no acknowledgement of the effort you put in. Your first instinct is irritation. But before that irritation becomes anger, pause. Ask yourself, what is this email actually saying? Is it possible this person is under pressure? Is it possible they are distracted, stressed, dealing with something I know nothing about? Is it possible this has nothing to do with me at all? 9 times out of 10, when you run that examination, you discover that your initial interpretation was the most aggressive one available, and probably not the most accurate one. You reached for the interpretation that made it personal. And it was not necessarily personal. This is cognitive reframing in practice. The event stays the same. Your interpretation of it shifts. And with it, your emotional response shifts entirely. Marcus Aurelius did this constantly. He would remind himself that people act from their nature, from their pain, from their limitations, not from a desire to harm him specifically. That understanding dissolved most of what might have angered a lesser man. The practical step is simple. Before deciding how you feel about something, ask yourself, is this the only way to see this? Almost always the answer is no. And the moment you see another possibility, the anger has less ground to stand on. The second principle: detach your identity from the opinion of others. Imagine someone criticizes something you made, your work, your decision, your idea. Notice what happens inside. If you feel defensive, if you feel the urge to explain yourself or prove them wrong, what is really being threatened is not the work. It is your image of yourself. Your ego has merged with the output. And so a critique of the output feels like an attack on who you are. The Stoics were very clear about this. Your worth is not located in what other people think of you. It is not in your reputation, your title, your accomplishments, or anyone's approval. It is in your character, in how you actually live, the choices you actually make, the standards you actually hold yourself to in private. And that is something no one's opinion can touch. When you genuinely build your identity on that foundation, external criticism loses most of its sting. Someone says something negative about you, and instead of reacting, you can simply ask yourself, is this true? If it is useful feedback. If it is not your problem to carry. Either way, there is no anger required. Epictetus said it plainly. If someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. The insult only lands if something inside you receives it as true. Stop receiving it, and it stops landing. The third principle: expect human behavior. Think about the last time someone disappointed you. A friend forgot something important. A colleague let you down. A family member made a selfish choice, and you felt that familiar mix of hurt and anger. But ask yourself honestly, were you surprised? Should you have been? Human beings are imperfect. They are distracted, self-interested, limited by their own fears and struggles. Not out of malice in most cases, simply because that is what human beings are. When you walk through the world expecting people to consistently behave with the kind of consideration, loyalty, and awareness that you expect from them, you are setting yourself up for constant disappointment. The Stoics had a practice of what they called negative visualization, not pessimism, but honest preparation. They would remind themselves in advance that people would behave as people do, that things would not always go as planned, that difficulty was not an exception to life, but a regular feature of it. And in doing so, they removed the element of surprise that feeds anger. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "When you wake up each morning, tell yourself that today you will encounter people who are ignorant, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest. Do this not to become bitter, but to remain calm, because the person who is prepared for difficulty does not erupt when it arrives. They simply note it and continue. The next time someone behaves in a way that disappoints or frustrates you, instead of thinking, 'How could they?' try this. 'Of course they did.' They are human. And then ask yourself what you want to do with that information. That shift in expectation alone removes enormous amounts of unnecessary anger from your life." The fourth principle: choose your response. Do not follow your reaction. There is a critical difference between a reaction and a response. A reaction is automatic. It is the first thing that rises in you when something happens. The surge of emotion, the impulse to snap back, to defend yourself, to retaliate. A response is deliberate. It is what you choose to do after you have noticed the reaction and decided whether to follow it. Most people live almost entirely in reaction. Something happens, and they are already in motion, already speaking, already arguing, already defensive, before a single thought has been examined. And the damage from that pattern is significant. Relationships strained by things said in anger. Opportunities lost because composure gave way. Respect eroded by emotional outbursts that could have been avoided. Seneca described anger as a brief madness, and like madness, it passes. But the consequences of what you do in those moments often do not. The word said in anger cannot be unsaid. The action taken in impulse cannot always be undone. The practice here is the pause. Between the trigger and the response, create space, even a breath, even a few seconds. In that space, you move from reaction to choice. You stop being a pinball machine, bouncing off every surface, and start being the person who decides where things go next. A simple way to build this in practice. When you feel the heat of anger rising, do not speak immediately. Take one slow breath. Ask yourself, what do I actually want from this situation? Almost always, the answer is not the explosion your reaction is heading toward. The answer is something more productive, more dignified, more aligned with who you want to be. The fifth principle: practice emotional discipline every day. Emotional control is not something you have or do not have. It is something you build. Like physical strength, it develops through consistent practice across many small moments, not just the big dramatic ones. Every time you feel a minor irritation and choose not to amplify it, you are building emotional muscle. Every time someone says something dismissive and you let it pass without engaging, you are building emotional muscle. Every time someone says something dismissive and you let it pass without engaging, you are building emotional muscle. Every time traffic is bad and you keep your blood pressure steady, you are building emotional muscle. These small moments feel insignificant, but they are the actual training ground. Aristotle spoke of virtue as habit, not a state you reach once and possess forever, but a continuous practice of choosing well in ordinary moments. The man of excellent character, he said, is not the one who never faces difficulty. He is the one who consistently meets difficulty with the right response. And that consistency comes from practice, not from talent. The practical application is deliberate exposure. Put yourself in mildly uncomfortable situations and practice staying calm. When someone says something irritating, practice noticing the irritation without acting on it. When plans change, practice accepting the change without spiraling. Train the gap between stimulus and response to grow wider, one small moment at a time. Do it enough and it becomes natural. What once triggered you barely registers anymore, not because you have gone numb, because you have gotten strong. The sixth principle. Silence is often the most powerful response. Picture this. Someone says something designed to provoke you, an insult dressed as a comment, a remark meant to get a rise, and you say nothing. You hold eye contact, remain completely composed, and simply do not engage. What you have just done is far more powerful than anything you could have said in that moment. Silence denies the provocateur exactly what they came for: a reaction. And without a reaction, their power over you evaporates instantly. They expected to shake you and discovered they could not. That is not passivity. That is dominance, the quiet kind that does not announce itself and does not need to. Marcus Aurelius observed that the best response to anger is silence. Not because silence is weakness, because silence is the one response that costs you nothing and gives them nothing. It preserves your dignity, conserves your energy, and communicates something that any clever argument would not, that you are completely unbothered. There is also this. People who try to provoke others do so because they are looking for a reaction that validates something they feel. They want to see that they have power over you. When you offer nothing, you force them to sit with the fact that they do not. And that is a much more effective response than anything your anger could produce. The next time someone says something intended to disturb you, try this. Breathe. Look at them calmly. Say nothing. And watch how quickly their power drains away when they realize you are simply not available to be provoked. The seventh principle. Let go of what you cannot change. Holding on to anger about something that has already happened is one of the least productive things a human mind can do. The event is finished. The words were spoken. The action was taken. Nothing your anger does in the present will alter what occurred in the past. All it can do is damage you now. Seneca captured this with a simplicity that is hard to argue with. He asked why we allow yesterday's pain to poison today's peace. The answer, in most cases, is habit. We replay events because we are looking for something, a resolution that will not come, a justice that will not be delivered, a different outcome that the replay cannot produce. And in the meantime, the present moment, the only place where anything can actually be done, slips by unnoticed. Letting go is not about saying that what happened was acceptable. It is not about forgiving someone who has not earned it, or pretending that wrongdoing did not occur. It is about making the practical decision that you will not allow something you cannot change to continue draining your energy. You are choosing where your attention goes, and your attention is your most valuable resource. Think about it this way. Every moment you spend in anger about the past is a moment taken away from building the future. The man who can release that weight, who can acknowledge what happened and then redirect his energy forward, is the man who keeps accumulating, keeps building, keeps moving, The man who cannot put it down stays exactly where he is, carrying something that no longer serves him. Now let us look at two men facing the same situation. A manager says something dismissive to both of them in front of the team, belittles their contribution, moves on without giving them a chance to respond. The first man feels the anger rise and follows it immediately. His jaw tightens. He says something back, not quite insubordinate, but sharp enough that the room notices. For the rest of the day, he replays it. He complains to colleagues. He cannot concentrate on his work. The situation has infected his afternoon, his evening, his conversation with his family at dinner. He is still thinking about it the next morning. And here is the thing. The manager has already forgotten it. The second man feels the same rise of emotion, but he notices it. He does not follow it. He takes a breath, keeps his expression neutral, and continues with his work. Later that day, when the moment is right and the audience is private, he addresses it directly with the manager, calmly, clearly, without aggression. He makes his position known, and then he releases it. It is handled. He moves forward. That evening, he is present with his family. The next morning, he wakes up with his energy intact. Same event, same initial emotional response, completely different outcomes, because one man was governed by his reaction and the other governed his response. The difference is not luck. It is not personality. It is practice. It is the result of consistently choosing to be the second man in smaller, quieter moments until it becomes who you are by default. Anger is not strength. It is the loudest symptom of a loss of control. A man who cannot be rattled, who absorbs difficulty without erupting, who processes frustration quietly and responds from clarity. That man is not emotionless. He is powerful in the most fundamental way available. He governs himself, and the man who governs himself cannot be governed by anyone else. You will face disrespect. You will encounter unfairness. People will disappoint you, frustrate you, and test you. That is not a possibility. That is a guarantee. The only thing that is not guaranteed is how you will respond. That part is yours. It always has been. If you cannot control your emotions, you cannot control your life. Because your emotions shape your decisions, and your decisions shape everything. But the moment you commit to this practice, the honest, daily, unglamorous practice of catching yourself before you react, of examining your interpretation before you believe it, of choosing your response instead of following your impulse, the moment you commit to that, something changes. Not overnight, but steadily. One situation at a time, one choice at a time, until the version of you that was easily disturbed starts to feel like someone you used to be. That is what emotional mastery looks like. Not perfect, not cold, not distant, just steady, grounded, unshakable, completely your own. Drop a comment below and share which principle hit you the hardest today. And if someone in your life could use this kind of thinking right now, share this with them. Every question and every thought you have, bring it below. This community is here for that conversation. Stay grounded, stay disciplined, stay stoic.